Good morning. My name is Tim. I work here at this church, and I am so proud of a church that embraces the fact that we love kids. We've got an incredible children's ministry over there. We've got awesome students. And guys, I know that I briefly said it to some of us, but we are so fortunate, not just that we're not begging our kids, hey, can you please be around? Can you please be in church? We invite them into leadership with us. And you guys have got to give them one more round of applause because it is a big deal. It is a big deal to have students feel like they fit in church, and our students don't just feel like they fit, they feel like they belong, and we're family. So, golly, I'm just so proud, let alone the fact that they're pretty stinking good too, okay? Now, I need to tell you something. We're gonna mess with you today, and I'm sorry about that. There are two reasons why we're gonna mess with you. One, they are too great. This is too rare of an opportunity for us to only shove them in the beginning of a service and then move on without them. So we're gonna drip our student band across the service today. We're gonna even end our time with them because it's a rare opportunity. And there are too many churches that beg kids to even be around, and we're gonna bring them all the way in. So we're gonna do that. And I know you're thinking, wait, what does that mean? We're supposed to do 3 songs, do announcements, do 1 song, and then do a sermon. I know that that's in the Bible and stuff, but it's not. But we're also a little bit courageous in what we're going to teach today. There's this incredible section, it's the Olivet Discourse. It's Matthew 24 and 25. Jesus uses a bunch of stories to answer one question in the beginning of Matthew 24. We're not going to teach all of it, but we'd like to teach you 2 stories today that capture the direction that Jesus is moving with this entire chunk of Scripture. So rather than try and plow it all together, we're gonna do 2 mini devotional type sermons. And now you're thinking like, shoot, the kids are good, but Tim, so help me, if you do 2 sermons, it's this mini, okay? It's like fun-sized Snicker bars. It's like, oh, 2 of those equal, like, that's not a lot of calories. So we're gonna do 2 mini sermons, okay? Devotion. So I don't know if we've already handed out notes or not. If we have, good for us. If not, we can hand them out now. Raise your hand if you need notes, because we're gonna go through the first parable right now. I know, I told you we were messing with you, and I just did. Matthew 25, open there, click there. You can read along on the screens. I don't really mind. I'm just excited to communicate what Jesus taught 2,000 years ago. So Matthew 24, he's really starting to get them ready for his death, because it's going to be like world-shattering, that he already changed their worldview, and it's all wrapped up in him. And he says, by the way, I'm gonna die. And it's like, well, wait a second. You had us leave everything to follow you, and you've only been around, your ministry 3 years. What's going on? And then Jesus starts to tell them, hey, I'm gonna wrap up all time. History itself is gonna be concluded with my return. And so then they say in the beginning of Matthew 24, wait a second. When are you going to wrap everything up? Because I want to be ready for that. And so a number of stories are told to answer that question, and this is one of them. So both of our parables, Jesus says it's going to be like. What's going to be like? Well, the conclusion of time is going to be like the 2 stories that we're telling you now. So Matthew 25, verse 1. At that time, the kingdom of heaven, we've been talking about the kingdom as well. The kingdom of heaven will be like 10 virgins who took their lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were foolish and 5 were wise. The foolish ones took their lamps but didn't take any extra oil with them. The wise ones, however, took oil in jars along with their lamps. Now the bridegroom was a long time in coming, and they all became drowsy and they fell asleep. All of them did, all 10, the 5 and the 5. At midnight, the cry rang out, here's the bridegroom, come out to meet him. Then all the virgins woke up and trimmed their lamps. And then the foolish ones said, hey, we don't got no oil. Give us some of yours, because our lamps are going out. No, they replied, there won't be enough for us and you. Instead, go to those who sell oil and buy some for yourself. But while they were on their way to buy the oil, the bridegroom arrived. The virgins who were already went in with him to the wedding banquet were there, and the door was shut. Later the others came. Excuse me, sir, Lord, they said, open the door for us. But he replied, truly, I tell you, I don't know you. Therefore keep watch, because you do not know the day or the hour. Okay, So So let's explain what's going on, okay? You don't know what in the world's going on, lamps, and it's weird to hear the word virgins in church, and like what's going on here, okay? So the people listening at the time would have understood the story, but not the meaning. We're actually probably the opposite. We probably would get like, Tim, tell me what this is about. Okay, that makes sense. What is the story though? I don't understand all the ingredients in what's being cooked here. Well, let me explain to you how things would work. If there was gonna be a wedding, a man would be betrothed to a young woman, okay? They'd be promised to each other. And as preparations went along, he would begin to go prepare a place for this woman to leave her family and go to his. So in first century Jewish culture, family units took care of the children until it was time for the young man to take care of his daughter. So if I had a daughter, which I do, I have two, I would take care of her. My estate, if I was humble and not really well off, I'd have a building and we'd take care of her until she was ready to be taken care of by another husband. I tell my girls, they're 6 and 8, I tell my girls, someday when you get married, he's got to know Jesus and he's got to have a job. Jesus and job, okay? And they've got it memorized. If you see my girls, you ask them, hey, when you look for a husband, what does he got to have? Jesus and a job. And some days it's like, let's get that job nailed for, no, I'm kidding. Jesus first. So they would take care of their daughter, and he, the bridegroom, is responsible to prepare a place for her. Now, he would either add on to his family's estate, he'd prepare a new building or an add-on, or he would step out on his own and say, we're gonna kind of like go down the road, we're gonna own our own property and add on to it. So he's gotta prepare that. That's on him. So he is preparing a place, and I can see you in this room. Some of us are old enough to remember the days before cell phones, right? It's weird because nowadays we know everything immediately. Back in the day, you generally knew things, okay? Like you would know things the next day when it come out in a newspaper. And so if you had family traveling from across country, they would tell you, hey, we're leaving on Thursday. Usually it takes us 2.5 days to get there. But like weather or like if the kids are extra crazy or a tire, like we can't guarantee we'll be there. Now my phone tells me you will arrive at 2:11 p.m. even with current traffic conditions. It's crazy. Well, even earlier than the 1980s, you would tell people, hey, I think it's gonna take me 2 weeks. I gotta get these things done and then I gotta travel. And I hope I get there then. So he's preparing a place, and he thinks he knows how long it's gonna take, but like ish, right? Like I'll be there this day-ish. And so the bride and her family were back at the place getting ready for the wedding. And weddings were big deals. I mean, big deals. Like shame on us a little bit. We go to a wedding, right? And we're like, okay, how long do we gotta stay so that people knew we were here? And like, for sure the ceremony, and then like drop a card and like go, or like drop a card, like hug grandma and go, or like, how long do we gotta stay at this thing? Man, you stayed back in the day, sometimes days. You would spend a few days because it was such a big deal that me taking care of my daughter for so long, you are going to take care of my daughter, and our families are connected. And you know what? We're so proud that as a young man now, you are the papa bear for your own. So they would take their time. So the bride had a lot to do as well. She's getting things ready. They're like waiting to strike the band when it's time. So she's there, the bridegroom is there, and now you've got these 10 virgins. I'm gonna start calling them bridesmaids because that makes more sense in our culture, okay? So we've got the 10 bridesmaids. And the 10 bridesmaids, their job is to wait for him. Because when he comes back, oh my gosh, it's time. It's like the moment and so they're hanging out and they're waiting. And they know generally-ish when he's coming, but they don't know exactly. And so they're waiting and they're doing, let's be honest, ladies have always been ladies and dudes have always been dudes. And they're talking and like, oh, she's gonna look so pretty. And I do think we'll find a guy at this wedding. My family will see another family and like, we'll get betrothed. And then like, oh, he's such a good guy. He's been watching so much Fixer Upper and he's got white subway tile in the kitchen. And he's like got Joanna Gaines on a Twitter feed and he's following her and he's getting that place so ready. Oh, he's so good. And then they start to nod off because they're waiting and they're waiting and they're waiting. And the really important part of the story is Jesus says they've all got lamps. Can we throw up even a picture? I know we've got a picture of it too. They've all got a lamp. This is an example of an old world lamp. You would fill the round part with oil, and out through this part you would put a wick, and the wick would draw the oil out. And like some of you guys like Scentsy people, and you're like, oh, it's like an old world Scentsy. It is. And then some of you are essential oil people, and you're like, oh, it's like oregano oil, or like, that's the only one I can think of right now. And so you would have this lamp, and it wasn't actually for Scentsy purpose, and it wasn't actually for like doTERRA purposes. It was so you could see. This was your flashlight. My bad, no one uses flashlights anymore. This was your cell phone that you would pull out the flashlight for so that you could see him. And so they're waiting, and they're waiting all day, and he must have like put some extra work into this house because he doesn't even come the day they think. But they're still waiting, and the way Jesus tells the story is they start to drift, and their lamps probably run out of oil, and they're a little bit tired, just a little bit. Just a little bit. And so they watch their Gilmore Girl episodes on Netflix, and then they fall asleep, and they're drifted off. And then someone on the edge of town, and like the town is just excited about this, and they yell, "He's coming!" And then all the girls wake up, and they're like, "Oh, I'm just sleeping from my eyes. Quick, eyes don't be puffy, eyes don't be puffy." And then they fix their hair, like, pull the hay out of my hair, girl, your hair looks good, calm down. And they're like, okay, let's get ready. And the Bible says that they trimmed their wicks. Now you're like, I don't even know what that means. It just means that they prepared their lamps. They cut that end off because if you leave it all mangled and burnt, you're gonna get smoke and no light. And they need light because they have to find him. This whole thing revolves around finding him. He's the provider. He's the new home. He's the one who's gonna go get his woman. And so they're getting it ready, and 5 of them are like, oh no, no more patchouli. I don't know, what is lavender? I got nothing. And they tell the other ladies, they're like, hey, I don't have my oil. Now, in our modern day context, it's your battery runs out, okay? That's what it is. And they're like, give me a charge. And the other ladies, the passage said, had a jar. And you would hang it from your wrist, you'd tie this off and you'd loop it through here, or you could walk around, I guess, looking like you're drinking tea, I don't know. And you would hang extra oil, and the other ladies are like, shoot, he's here, it's time to get ready. And they would pour oil in their lamp, and then now we're done with this, and then now I'm gonna light this, and it's like, oh, I can see. Now I can see. And so the 5 foolish bridesmaids were the ones who were not watching for who they were watching for. And the 5 wise ones, they were the ones who were ready, that I will watch for him until he's there. Even if it takes me preparation, even if it takes me like consistent, even if it takes me like burning some extra oil, I know why I'm here. And the reason I'm here is to watch for the bridegroom. And so they go off because they can see, and they're gonna find him. And the other ones are like, well, shoot, I need to figure this out. Like, it's time, like I gotta figure this out. And so they rush off, and they're trying to figure out and bring some light into their life. And the way Jesus tells the story is the ones who were dumb only had this. The ones who were smart were ready for the long haul. I mean, that's it. So now you understand both the traditions of like why they're separate, why he's coming back, why is it the middle of the night. That's part of it. But a big part of it is, are you walking around like, oh, I'm excited about watching for the bridegroom a little bit, but as soon as I'm disinterested in it, I'm kind of done. And then there's another group that they're like, no, I'm ready for as long as it takes. I'm gonna watch. Then Jesus says that as those ladies that watched, they got to go to the wedding feast, and oh my gosh, it was so awesome. Like, she did look gorgeous. She had this really simple it was like this like first century Jewish girl look that she had to her. And she was so proud to see her man. And he comes in, and they get married, and they throw a feast, and people are so excited. And then those other girls, the girls who were supposed to be watching and they missed it, they showed up and they're like, hey, we know we missed it, but like we could still wind up in the Instagram pictures. Like we know that we didn't do what we were called to do. We know that. And we know that we weren't there for our girl when she got married. We know that. But we still want to hop in on the party. And the answer in the story is the party tells them, No, we did this already. Like, we're good. Like, it happened. And it's like, oh, well, this Christmas Hallmark special ends kind of harsh. Like, no, you can't come to the party. Like, I don't know what to tell you. You missed it. And then the story ends. And Jesus says, therefore, keep watch, because you don't know the day or the hour. So I want you to write a couple things down. One, this is what the parable means. God will hold you accountable for what you did with his son, period. We don't got to make a lot of nuanced things like, okay, so like the lamp jar is that's like what is that, Tim? Like, what's the lamp jar? And like the oil, like what is that? Like, what's that mean? And then like the 5 and the 5, explain the 5 and then what's the 5 mean? And then like the fact that it was nighttime, like what did that mean? And like what did this, listen, the story has a clear meaning and it's this. All of those ladies were told, you watch for him. That's your role in this. And if you want to celebrate this wedding, you watch for him. And some of them did, and some of them didn't. That's the purpose of this parable. The story is an example of a negative lesson because some people failed to see who they were looking for. And part was excited, ready, and on it, and part missed it completely. And the lesson for you is this, is that you have an opportunity to watch for God's own son, Jesus. You see, last week, Ricky did a great job of telling us, here's the person and the character of Jesus. Even when he sees someone who is out of his mind insane, who is offensive even to the godless people he lives with, Jesus steps out of a boat and walks straight to him. I want you to be with me forever. I want you to be part of this feast. I've prepared a place for you, you with me. That story last weekend, Ricky, was about Jesus. This weekend, Jesus tells us through his story. Now let me ask you about you. I'm asking you to watch for me all the days of your life. And I know there will be a season you'll be excited about the idea, but then real life is gonna set in, and it's gonna be easy for you to slowly fade out as you watch for me. This parable says you watch all the days of your life. You don't get caught up with the trimmings and the trappings of Americanity, where it's this random mix of like some Christian ethic and then some political thing and then some economic thing. No. You stay faithful right here to Jesus. Well, I'm gonna be excited about my faith when the kids are young because they need church, but as soon as they get old enough, I'm done. It's just so hard to follow Jesus when there's football. Or I'm gonna follow Jesus when I'm messed up and I'm screwed up and I'm gonna come back into church and I'm gonna cry and I'm gonna pray, but then when things are good again, I'm gonna bounce and I'm out. Jesus says in this parable, you will be held accountable for what you did with watching for me. And I'm telling you, this is what we're gonna end with this first part of our service, is that Jesus is above anything that we're gonna do and ever gonna organize. There ain't no small group, there ain't no Christmas Eve, there ain't no community outreach that's more important than us setting our affection on him. So I'm gonna bring our students back out and we're just gonna sit on this. You can write this down. What you do with the Son matters for an eternity, okay? So as a church, we are reminded through this parable today, Jesus, we prioritize you. That's it. As we're gonna worship 2 songs, and I'm gonna ask you this. Are you caught up with the trappings of Christianity, or are you focused on Christ? Or right now, you're more worried about life around you and not on him? We're giving space for that right now. It ain't a church service if we don't take an offering, right? So we're gonna take our offering right now as well. But we would love for you just to have a moment in the middle and just to dwell on this. Is Jesus top or is he not? Father, I pray for us as a church. God, there's always another class, there's always another event, there's always another activity. Father, it's easy for us to mix politics and faith. God, it's easy for us to more be preoccupied with finances than faith. And so, Father, you told us a pretty straightforward story that we're wise if we watch for you and we're stupid if we don't. And so, God, right now in the middle of our service, we prioritize, we watch for you. Amen. So here's the beautiful thing. So we start off last weekend, the person and the character of Jesus is there's no one like that. Even when he grows deeply in our own character, we still aren't this compassionate. And so the person of Jesus is worth fixing my gaze on for a lifetime. So we prioritize this person, and then we say, now the best thing that I can do is I watch for him. My lamp will not go out. I will not grow weary in watching for the bridegroom. I say he is worth watching for a lifetime. Now the story we hop into, he's saying, okay, can I ask you one more step? Because I need you to take another one. And that's the story of the talents. Now, I need to tell you something about Bible translation. Okay, so the original letters of the New Testament are written in Koine Common Greek. And over the years, they've been translated. The first translation was from Greek into Latin, and it's made a number of jumps since then. The first time it made the jump into English was the King James. Now, in 1984, we had an update of the New International Version, the NIV, and a lot of people owned that Bible. It was everywhere. And then in 2011, they updated the language again. The history of that is that this parable is kind of weird because there's a business owner and he gives 3 of his employees a chunk of money and he says, I'm gonna be busy for a while, go invest this money so that the business keeps growing even while I'm gone. And the term that's used is talent. Talent was a measurement in the first century Jewish world. It was an amount. But over the years, it's not used that way anymore. When we say talent, we say, man, those are kids, they are talented. We don't mean they possess lumps of money. We know they don't. They drain your bank account, okay? So after the 1984 version, the translators, the committee, the scholars who work on the NIV said, we gotta stop using the word talent because we just use it so differently now. I know that's the measurement in the story, but we have to use a different term. It's like an economic term. So they freshened up the language and they use an economic term we use all the time, bags of gold. So as you're reading along with me, your Bible might say talent. I'm gonna say bags of gold. It just cracks me up. It's you guys caught up to the 1800 pirate society. I don't know that we walk around with bags of gold. I know we don't in the desert. So I'm gonna read you the story next in Matthew 25, and it says this. Again, it will be like, what will be like? The return of Christ. It will be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and trusted his wealth to them. To one he gave 5 bags of gold, to another 2 bags, to another 1 bag, each according to his ability. Then he went on his journey. The man who had received 5 bags of gold went at work once and put his money to work, and he gained 5 bags more. I'm impressed most of you got that. So also the one with 2 bags of gold gained 2 more. But the man who had received 1 bag went off, dug a hole in the ground, and hid his master's money. And after a long time, the master of those servants returned and settled accounts with them. The man who had received 5 bags of gold brought the other 5, looking like a baller, looking like the Monopoly guy in a top hat, okay? Puts 10 bags of gold on the table and he says, see, I've gained 5 more. His master replied, well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many. Come and share your master's happiness. The man with 2 bags of gold also came. Master, he said, you trusted me with 2 bags of gold. See, I gained 2 more. Well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful with a few things. I'll put you in charge of many. Come and share in your master's happiness. Then the man who had received 1 bag of gold came. Master, he said, you see, here's the thing. I knew that you're a hard man. You harvest where you haven't sown. You gather where you haven't even scattered. And so I was afraid that you would expect something. And so what I did, here's what I did. Is what happened is here's your money back. And he hands it over. His master replied, you wicked, lazy servant. So wait a second. You knew that I harvest where I haven't sown and that I gather where I haven't scattered. You knew that I'm interested in growing the company. You know that. As a matter of fact, you're so accustomed to how interested I am in growth is you literally just told me the things that I do to grow the company. It's not just that you know that I want to, it's that you also know how to. And instead, you did nothing? Well, then you should have put my money on deposit with the bankers so that when I returned, I would have received it back with interest. So take that bag of gold from him. Give it to the one who's got 10. For whoever has will be given more, and they'll have an abundance. And whoever doesn't have, even what they have will be taken from them. And throw that worthless servant outside. There's an idea of separation again. Parable of the 10 bridesmaids, separation. This parable, separation. The next one, goat and sheeps, separation. I know you don't say sheeps, get off me. Separation. Throw that worthless servant outside into the darkness. There will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Okay, so this parable is simple and straightforward. You don't got to make it be about more than it is. There's a boss, and he's got a business, and he loves his business to grow because that's what businesses do. They make money. And so don't over-spiritualize it right now and say, okay, but like God doesn't like want money, so like what does it really mean? It's just a story. You're supposed to care about it right off the bat. You're supposed to start caring in verse 14 when Jesus says there was a man who owned a business and he trusted his wealth while he was gone to his servants. You're already supposed to be on the edge of your seat because like first century world, they'd be impressed that the owner of the business was trusting his money to his workers. So let me tell you a different one, okay? So there's this single mom. She is working hard to provide for her 4-year-old son. She rents like an extra house off the back of it's the most affordable thing she could find. It's on Bear Valley Road, okay? And so it's not a great location. There ain't no backyard. She's renting this teeny little space, and she only works shifts. She doesn't even have like a 8 to 5 job. She works shifts. And because of that, it's hard for her to keep up with the regular babysitter. She doesn't make a lot, so she can't pay him a lot, so she can't even keep good ones. And then the irregularity of her job means that she's got to regularly find people. And so she finds this new girl. She's 14 years old, and she's willing, and she will show up. And so mom's got to hire her because she's got to show up for her job. She can't lose the job she has. So she hires this untested, unproven, never babysat before 14-year-old girl and says, hey, there's something you got to know about 4-year-old boys. They're as crazy as you've heard. And then she says, just watch my baby. And then mom takes off for work. Well, the babysitter doesn't know what to do, and that 4-year-old boy sees mama leave. And I don't know if you remember all the way back to school, but when a substitute shows up, it's like, oh, sweet. Like, we ain't gonna do nothing today. And that 4-year-old sees mama leave and sees the 14-year-old babysitter there, and he thinks to himself, perfect. Grabs this little like Tonka like tricycle bike thing and heads out the front door towards Bear Valley Road. That's what he's doing. Right now in the story, you're like, okay, and then what happens next? Like the next thing that happened is pretty doggone important. Like mama's still in the driveway. She's getting herself ready for work, right? And that's what happens next. Or like the boy walks out and he sees the craziness and he's like, I'm gonna go back in the house. Or like the 14-year-old babysitter, she steps up and she says, no child, come back in. And she like fetches him totally legally, but like grabs him and brings him back in, okay? Like you're wondering like what happens next in this story. That's what's happening in this one. Don't make it be something it's not. It's a story about a boss and his money and his employees. That's what this story is. And the way the story goes is you learn that the dude that was given 5 talents, measurements, 5 bags of gold, he goes out and he's like, okay, I know my boss and I know he wants the business to grow. And so I'm gonna do that. And he does. And the next one does as well. And the third one decides to himself, man, that's a lot of expectation. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna sit on it and I'm gonna bury it and he'll come back. I know he will. Like I know my boss. I know he's good for that, but I don't wanna mess things up. So like, I'm gonna write it out. And he does nothing. And then the boss comes back and the story's still making sense. He reviews the first employee and he says, man, you did a great job. I knew you could handle what I gave you, and you did it. My goodness, I'm proud of you. And then the next employee, he didn't make as much money as the other guy, did he? He just made what he had. That's what he made. The boss is the same level of proud over his life, isn't he? And he says, man, I trusted you, and I knew I could. you know what? Come share in everything I got. I'm gonna give you more. And then he gets to the third dude and he says, okay, brother, how'd it go? Like, I know you don't have people skills. I know you tend to overthink and underperform. So like, I set you up just right. I just gave you a little bit, just a little bit. Like, how'd it go, man? He goes, well, here's the thing. Like, I know, it's just that, like, it got hard there for a while. And so, like, what I did, I buried it. And the master says to him, oh, you're kidding, right? Like, you did nothing? Like, you put my money in dirt? Wait a second. You just told me, what you told me is you know that I'm so interested into growing my business that if I learn there's an orange grove off the 215 and I wonder who owns that orange grove. And I look it up with the recorder's office and I find out it's just public domain land. And I know every year all them oranges are just gonna fall down and be used for nothing. I'm gonna collect those oranges, I'm gonna sell them to doTERRA so they can make some more oil. Because like, why would I not make money if I can? You know that. Yeah, I know that. Okay, so you know that about me. And what you chose to do with your life was to do nothing. Well, I mean, when you say it that way, it sounds harsh. I don't like the way this conversation's going. And the owner says to him, I don't either. You know what? I'm gonna take what's yours, I'm gonna give it to someone else. Get out of here. Everyone listening to the story would have been like, yeah, that makes sense. That's the way the story goes. If I'm an employer and my employee spends the day in the break room, they're now called unemployed. If I'm a principal and my teacher spends all day on the computer playing mahjong, you are no longer called teacher. You are called unemployed. Let's hop back in on our babysitter story. So the 14-year-old girl, mom leaves, 4-year-old boy grabs his big wheels and heads out for the front door. And her thought was, oh, perfect. I didn't know what I was gonna do anyway. And so if he's gonna go out and play along the sidewalk of Bear Valley, he knows what's happening. And she closes the door, she hops on the couch and pulls out her phone, and she's sending snaps to her girlfriend in between episodes on Netflix. That's what she does. And you come home to that. Do you ever hire her back? No, you do not. You're bothered. As a matter of fact, literally, like let's make a crossover parallel a connection to the story. It would have been better. Mom shows back up and she said, why didn't you at least put him back in the house and turn on the TV? Even that would have been better than what you did. Like, at least put it in the bank, because I'm not interested in nothing. I'm interested in something. Why didn't you at least do that? So this story makes sense. I get it. If you were a boss or a supervisor, no, these are not. If you are a mama and you hired a babysitter that did nothing, you know how to handle it. And then here's the crossover. Write this down. God will hold you accountable for what you did with your life. And I don't know what else to tell you. The sequence is this. Yes, Jesus, if we only consider him, he is worthy to be celebrated every hour of my life. But he's gonna put a call on my life and he's gonna say, you gotta watch for me. That's on you. And then he says, by the way, I don't want you to write it out. I don't want you to curl up on the couch and be like, cool, I know you're coming back and I'm great with it. And so I'm gonna keep watching Gilmore Girls until you do, because this is super comfortable. You're awesome and I'm gonna watch. The third parable is another step, isn't it? And the story, I mean, I'd love for it to be something else. Like, cool, man, I got excited about my faith, but like I watched my church be like convicted about the glory of Jesus. But I don't even participate in worship, to be honest. I'm so proud that my church is gonna get involved with that community stuff they've been talking about. That's great. I'm so glad that I'm part of a church that has active compassion. That's great. I'm so glad. Man, I'm aware of Christian authors and speakers, and sometimes when someone drops a Francis Chan quote on their Instagram, I like it, for sure. Like, bam, first like. But then if God's gonna ask me, okay, cool, your life is spent. You got saved when you were 8, and you lived all the way till you were 73. I gave you decades. What'd you do with it? Oh, well, here's the thing. Like, it was crazy there for a minute, and school is hard, and so like during school, I kept it on the down low, and then like for a while, I was trying to find a girl, and so like I had to look good, and so like I didn't really do much for you, and then when we got married, we just enjoyed being married, and like we didn't do a lot for you, and then we had kids, and Jesus, the kids you gave us the crazy ones. And so like that season was rough. And then they were in high school, and do you know how busy high school kids are? It's like, I don't even remember if they live here. And then they went off to college. Jesus, do you remember how expensive college is? It's like $11 billion. And so like then they got married, and it was like time to play a little bit, because like all of a sudden my income exceeded my outgoing, and it was nice there for a minute. And then I had grandkids, and it was so fun just to like be with my grandkids. And like, I know you gave me decades of life, and I invested none of it for you. And I'm telling you now, you're in a big church. That don't mean nothing. If you do not possess conviction, and if you are not actively compassionate, I don't know what to tell you. It ain't enough to be a fan. And I mean, I would love to just like hoot and holler like this. Just, man, where Ricky started us was great. Jesus pushes it here. The next parable is even harsher. We're going to stop on the best note we can because God is going to hold you accountable for what you do with your life. And write this down, what you do with your life is bound by time. So what you do with Jesus impacts an eternity, but what you do with your life is now framed by time. And this is the great thing, and we're going to close with this. It's why we're going to celebrate with communion, because it's such a wonderful sequence. When I start by celebrating the person of Jesus, I'm now moving my life in the right direction. And then when I say, okay, God, I need to be reminded, my attention is set on you. With these two things, guys, the sky's the limit. What he's gonna call us to do, let's just say we're a one-bag church. And like, God is just gonna ask us to be simple desert folk. Can we just start being the ones who stand up and say, I don't care what you look like, God loves you and his affection is set on you. I don't care what you're worried about in the election. God is king and he will rule over all administration changes. I don't care how your heart is wounded. I'm willing to be a servant to it. All you got to do is tell your boss the same things you did to build your company, those are the things I'll do. You ain't got to get tricky about it. You just need to be actively compassionate for the glory of Jesus. And so I'm excited to make an announcement. And it's this, is that we are looking for opportunities. This week, 3 days ago, Dan Landini sits right over here, tagged me on Facebook and said, hey, Tim, one of the organizations we support is hurting and we got to hop back in. I'm like, shoot, you got it, Dan. Thank you for being actively compassionate for our community. We've changed our budgets to be more prepared to be ready for this parable. We've changed our job descriptions so we can be more ready for this parable. We changed our service times to be more ready for this parable. And we're gonna ask you to not be a fan of what we will do as a church. I'm gonna ask you to be a part. And we want you to dig up the life God has given you and to invest it. And we're ready to start telling you our plan. Our plan to be involved in our community is this. We've picked 5 organizations we're gonna serve this year. And I'm telling you right now, I get nervous in the office. I get nervous, like they're gonna criticize. Well, why did you pick them? Why didn't you pick this? Why aren't you doing that? Man, I don't got time to worry about the fact that I'm not a 5-bag kind of a guy. I gotta invest what I got, and I don't even know. But we're gonna start investing in Village Elementary, Hope Junior High, Victor High School, Family Child Services, and law enforcement, because we think our community runs through them. We think that they try and serve our community, and we think that they get criticized. We think that they are ostracized, so we're gonna tell them, and by the way, this is gonna be hard for us because everything HTC does is big and flashy, right? We wanna be humble and faithful. So here's literally what we're gonna do is when morning shift arrives for law enforcement, we're gonna swing by with donuts and coffee. And we're gonna be like, you know what, we trust you guys and we love you. The men and women who serve our town, we just love you. And we're gonna do it all the time. That's all. With the kids across the street, we're not gonna tell them, we're not gonna kick down the doors and say, you need a Bible class and my pastor needs to teach it. And y'all need to get fixed before we help you. We're not gonna do that. We're just gonna say, your teachers are probably underthanked. We're gonna thank them. That's the things we're doing. And so, I'm gonna ask you to take a step. In your app, or on the website, we've set up a campaign. It's so clever. We call it, I Love Victorville. We spent so much time on that jingle. And here's what we're asking you to do. We're asking you, go on the app and click on the links, Victorville and then I Love Victorville, and give us your name and your email address. And you're like, wait a second, this is all about a mailing list? It actually is this time. Because I want to communicate to you guys, when there's a need we learn in the community, we're going to blast our community impact team. And we're going to say, hey, by the way, something awful happened over at the school. We want you guys to be praying, and if you're relationally connected, do something to be supportive to them. Hey, we've got an event coming up for foster kids that we want to kind of like do something extravagant for them. So here's the plan. So we need to be telling a group of people what these things are, because we're not going to do a big fix-all event once a year that like proves that we can say that we love the community, but we never do it. We want to be faithful. So we need a mailing list and a team that we're just going to shoot it out. Hey, here's what we're doing for local law enforcement this month. Here's what we're doing for this school. You want to hop in? Yeah or nah? And that's what we're doing. So this weekend, as you leave, the step we're asking you to take is join us. Identify yourself and let us know where you're at. And guys, we're going to end right now with this. That throw up the last 3 clicks. Just throw them all on the screen at the same time. I don't even care. We're always gonna honor Jesus above everything, period. There ain't no church program, there ain't no special service that's more powerful or effective than him. But we're always gonna be working on changing what we do to honor Jesus, and we're looking for new ways this year, we are. But I'll tell you this, when we're more caught up in what we do than who we do it for, we missed the point. And so we're ending our service with him. You guys realize that Jesus is the only God that says, you know what, don't make a sacrifice to me. When you worship me, remember my sacrifice for you. That's what communion is. So we're gonna pass it out, and normally a pastor gets back up and tells you, okay, take it. We're not even gonna do that. When you get the element, as students are leading us, you tell God, I cannot believe what you've done for me. I'm ready to do for you. And you take communion on your own, all right? All right, I'm gonna pray, that's cool. Father God, you are always good. God, you've been faithful across every century. You've been faithful across every language group. You've been faithful in every nation. You've been faithful across empires. And I'm worried about economics. I'm worried about a single presidential election. That's ridiculous. Father, my heart will not only be affectionate towards you, I settle it today. And I tell you that I will watch you intently and I will work for you as well. Jesus, you are able to build your kingdom, and so you be king over our dumb. And we tell you today that we celebrate you with communion. We celebrate you with obedience. We celebrate you through our faith, affection on you, because you are always able to do everything you've said. In Jesus' name, everyone said,